Have you ever had a situation where all of a sudden you get an idea or some sort of inspiration, and the next thing you know, you've taken action on it, and there really wasn't a whole lot of thought involved with it? You just kind of did it, right? Well, that is your higher self, your soul, your guides speaking to you. They are inspiring you, your intuition. These are connections that you have inherently because you are multidimensional. You are always connected. But we run into a problem along our journey where sometimes these messages get distorted. We get too involved in the mind and can't quite figure out what we're supposed to do. And when that happens, it's really hard to discern what's going on. Is it my ego that's speaking to me, my limiting beliefs, my programming? Is it my soul, my higher self, my guides? What the heck's going on here? And in this video, I want to dive into that and explain what's really happening and what you could do to really start to gain clarity over your guidance and stop overthinking it so much. Start trusting in what you're receiving, because there's a whole process happening here and you are always being guided. Now, if you're making decisions based on fear, based on expectations, based on limiting beliefs, based on programming, you're just choosing unconsciously to take a path that manifests more separation, more 3D types of experiences. If your field is clearer and you're able to process and actually receive and interpret the messages that you're getting from your higher self and your guides, you're going to go down a path that is going to be one of least or less resistance. It's going to be more flow-based, more flow state, and it's going to take a lot less energy to sustain it. Because if you're like me and you've noticed, when you're feeling like you're trying to make a decision and you're overthinking it, you are putting a lot of energy into that mental field, right? You're entertaining your mind and it's overthinking, and it's really clouding everything that is trying to come through. And that's okay. Sometimes we want to have those types of experiences for our growth, but it often leads to, as my Pleiadian guide always tells me, identifying with that human conditioning, which leads to more suffering. So let's dive in and let's talk about really how to discern whether it's your ego, your programming, your trauma speaking to you, or if it's your soul. So everything that comes through to you is really energy from the multidimensional you. We're constantly grounding energy, and we are moving it down through our central channel into the planet, and it's coming back up, and it's encountering resistance within the body. We call that stuck energy. And the more stuck energy you have, the more wobbly that information is going to become. Well, where does stuck energy come from? Well, stuck energy comes from these unprocessed emotions. Okay, so you may have had something happen in your life where you feel like you were maybe cut off from expressing yourself, or maybe you had a relationship with a narcissist and they made you feel really like a victim or really, really small. You felt like you couldn't really express or be confident. You didn't feel safe doing that because of the environment that you were in. Now, as your energy, your intuition starts to move through your body, it encounters that stuck energy, and that energy starts to wobble. And what happens is we create a reality that is based on that denser energy or that lower frequency. And that's a reality that keeps us limited and keeps us small. So the messages are coming through, but they're being distorted based on the trauma, based on the unprocessed emotions, based on the programming, based on the limiting beliefs. So we tend to get into a situation where it's not resonating with the truth of who we are. It doesn't quite feel right. So we end up overthinking it. We really can't commit. We can't make a decision. We don't know what to do. So we're in the mental field. It's really clouded, and it just distorts all of that information. When we start to anchor more into the body, that energy starts to pull back in and it becomes available. It starts to release, right? We start to free it up. We create more space energetically within the body. More of our higher frequency light can land, and we can start to perceive that. And those are the situations where you get into these knowings. Somebody may ask you to do something with them or for them, and you may just have an instantaneous knowing a yes or no without even thinking about it. Okay, you may have a situation come up in your reality, or it could even be an idea, right? It doesn't even need to be triggered by anything external. It could be a moment of inspiration, and you decide to act on it without even thinking about it. Okay, in that moment, you are anchored in the body, and you are completely clear. That is your soul, your higher self, your guides speaking through you, and you're processing that information. Because in that moment, your energy is pulled into the body and it's available. You're not scattered out here overthinking everything. So I want to show you this little illustration I did, which kind of highlights that. So we've got, this guy here, right? Could be man, woman, whatever, in the center. And if this is you and you're overthinking, what's happening is your energy it's really flowing out into your mental field, and that clouds your field. And when your field is clouded, your guides, your higher self, that information, that knowing can't get through. Okay, so when it does arrive, it arrives completely distorted because it has moved through a body that has stuck energy. So a clear signal comes in and it gets wobbly. So it's like we're throwing up a filter for our inspiration, for our intuition, for the messages from our guides. So if you're trying to connect with your guides and you can't, it's because you're in your mental body and not in the physical body. Your consciousness is out, you're overthinking it, you have expectations, you have limiting beliefs. Something is clouding the messages from coming through. So from your position, you sit and you think, well, I just can't do this, okay? Well, the fact that it's not happening for you is because that energy is not in the body, it's out in your mental field, and it is clouding that information that is there and trying to come through. So we want to bring it back into the body, okay? And when you do that, you're going to realize that you start to have these thoughts or maybe decisions come up, and you're not so tied up in the should I not do it. You just kind of have this inspiration to act on it or to not act on it. It's a deep knowing. It's just a deep knowing. I remember years ago, I decided to stop getting the flu vaccine. Okay, this is years ago. I'm like, every time I got this vaccine, I would tend to get the flu. I'd get sick, whatever. But one year, it was offered to me, and I just didn't take it. And it wasn't even really a thought about it. It was just like a hard no. Not that I had fear around it, but I felt deep down that I really didn't need it, like it wasn't necessary. So I was letting go of programming in that moment. And since that has happened, I haven't had the flu. Okay, I've never gotten the flu since, right? So that was something that just spoke to me, and it didn't take a whole lot of thought in that moment. I just kind of knew, right? And when COVID came out, it was the same exact thing. That was just like a no. And not from a fear perspective. It was a no, just that I didn't need it. It just wasn't necessary. And I didn't give it any thought. And I know there were a lot of people around me that were fear-based, that were rushing to try to get the vaccine. And I just felt it was a hard no, not even a second thought. Okay, so that was just something speaking to me. And in those moments, it was not based on fear. It was not based on programming. In fact, it was counter to all the programming, right, that I had ever received about you should get, take care of yourself in these ways and get vaccinated and those types of things. To me, it was just like a hard no. And when society was really putting pressure on me and pressure on my family, it remained a hard no. So I had an opportunity to become empowered in that moment and really align deeper with my guidance. Okay, so those were a couple of instances in my life where I've had clarity come through for me. Now, those situations, maybe for you, they're different, and that's okay. I'm not judging at all. I'm just explaining how that speaks through me, okay? And the experience I've had in those instances and many others is that there really isn't even a second thought about it. It's just like, you make that decision and you kind of move on, right? You leave it right there. So if you're in your head going back and forth, that is the ego speaking to you, right? Based on programming, based on limiting beliefs. And we get caught up in the decision. It's based on trauma as well. We get caught up in a decision. What's the right one? What's the wrong one? That is all your ego speaking to you, okay? Your soul wants to just move you forward with grace, okay? And how do you get to a point where you can move forward with grace? You get anchored in the body. You bring it into the body, because when you're here, it's not getting through. When you pull it into the body, all of a sudden, things kind of get clear. That distortion is no longer there. The message is received. So we clear our energy field by removing that distortion, by pulling it into the body, and we ground ourselves. We anchor into the lower chakras. We get present, and we start to observe the mind instead of being controlled by the mind. We always talk about, well, I'm controlled by other people. Well, really what's happening is that's just a reflection of you being controlled by your mind. Okay, when you're disempowered, when you're not feeling safe, when you're not feeling confident, when you're not feeling worthy, when you're feeling like a victim, that is you not allowing someone else to control you per se, but allowing your mind to control you, right? You've had some trauma, some experiences in your life years ago that forced you chose really to remain small in a situation, right? And your ego is trying to keep you there because that's what it knows, and it wants you to feel safe, right? But your soul is speaking to you. It is saying, become confident, become aligned, become worthy, self-love, okay? These are the types of emotions that your higher self is speaking to you. So when you're in your mind and you're trying to make a decision and it's all foggy, it's because you are not anchored in the lower chakras, feeling and experiencing those higher level emotions. Okay, when you do that, that distortion field clears and your soul's guidance starts to move forward. And again, the more you are thinking about which way to go in a decision, the more you are in the mind. Your field is distorted. That's why you're going back and forth. You cannot get that clear message. So in order to get that clear message, you need to clear your field. And you do that by anchoring into the body. And we do that in a new you. We do that with breath work. We get into the body. We feel safe in the body. We get into the root chakra. We feel empowered. We feel confident. And your field starts to clear. And you find that you have less resistance navigating life day to day. Decisions become clearer because you start to trust in your guidance. It's like you're pinged by your higher self. You're pinged by your guides. You perceive it. You know. Your mind does its thing. You observe it. You know that that's what it does, but you don't identify with it. You don't entertain it. You don't allow it to start analyzing or overanalyzing everything. You are more seated in your body and more connected with your guidance. And that is by clearing that distortion field that goes up when we overthink everything. Okay, so you could sit and you could try to connect with your guides, and you could try to connect with your higher self, and you could maybe do that. You could maybe fail at it. There could be resistance there, maybe because you have some expectations, or you could shift your focus on becoming more present, clearing your field, getting out of your overthinking mind, again, by getting anchored into the body. Okay, your field clears because that energy is no longer moving out into that field. It is moving in to the body, and more of you becomes available to interpret the messages, quantum messages that are there from your higher self, from your guides, intuitively, right? Your gut starts to become more sensitive. You start to just know and you know without having to question it because you trust. If you've had any situations like that where it was a hard yes, a hard no, you left it there, you didn't overthink it throughout your life, so I'd love to hear from you. Drop it in the comments. If this video resonated, definitely give it a thumbs up. I'd greatly appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and welcome. I want to throw this out there that I do have a free masterclass, Ignite Your Spirit and Discover Your Soul Purpose. If you have not yet attended that, I'm going to put a link in the description. In that masterclass, I show you how my experiences unfolded and what you can do to do exactly what I'm talking about in this video, which is clear that distortion field so that you can start to perceive, is it my ego or is it my soul, my higher self, my guides that's coming through? And once you start to discern that, you're going to be better able to stay on that path, that highest frequency timeline that is manifesting and available to you.